Part 2, Chapter 5. A job is a job. 2 days into FTL, Will has the computer assemble the crew in the lounge again. When he arrives, everyone is already waiting. Okay, right, Will says. We're all here. I have to say this is the first time since I got the ghost that it's been more than just me for more than a few days. It's kinda nice, so, don't screw that up. He looks right at Benny, who affects a stricken look on his large-eyed face. What? What did I do? Benny screeches, then dodges a pillow launched by Zephyr. Settle down, you animals, Will raises his voice. And Benny, whatever you are, you're part plant, right? Because I'm green? You racist prick. Benny plops down into his chair, glaring at Will. Then Zephyr and Maxim, and back to Will again. Kidding, calm down. You're so sensitive. Will smiles at the two Pelorians, then winks at Benny. Look, we need to talk about the job I accepted. Zephyr and Maxim look at each other. What job? They say simultaneously. Then they look at Benny, who just shrugs. I was with you two on Fury, remember? How would I know? It's the job I took while you two were shopping, Will says. Before getting chased by your former colleagues. The job we'll need to do to get the ship's account back to a point that doesn't make me lose sleep, and that lets us ramp up with what we need, now that it's not just me. Okay, so what's the job? Zephyr is leaning forward, hands clasped, interested. A snatch and grab from one of our employer's rivals. They're a small station in the Barsoom sector, mostly a depot for folks to store things. Away from the prying eyes of the authorities. What authorities? Maxim asks. All of them, Will answers dryly. Apparently most of the major crime bosses and syndicates rent space on the station. Only they know where it is, or how to get aboard. What are we stealing? Benny seems interested. Valuable? Tech? No idea. I try to ask as few questions as I can when Zarix is concerned. Here's what I know. The station is in the Barsoom sector, sitting out in open space. From what I'm told, there's a central reception area, well guarded by a private security firm, that answers to none of the clients. Whatever it is that Zarix wants, it's being kept on that station, in a section one of his competitors owns. A hologram begins hovering over the coffee table and then rotates and zooms in. Will continues. Zarix gave me a transponder ID that, once we're in the hold, should help ID the crate we want. But first, we'll need to get to the right hold. Apparently, there'll be trace isotopes we can scan for, but only in close. And I mean, like, at each door close, proximity. We'll have to go door to door to find the right one before breaking into it. Will looks at Benny. That's where you come in. I thought I'd have to hire a hacker when I took the gig. But thanks to a lucky turn of events, you're here. He smiles at the surly Braylac. I can do that. You don't even know what's involved, Zephyr says, looking over at Benny. Doesn't matter. I'm that good. The little hacker leans back in the chair, crossing his arms behind his head. Will smiles. That leaves the three of us. We're the muscle. I can get us into the central reception area, but from there, Benny will have to hack in and lead the way. If possible, I'd rather this be more a burglary than a fight. If it turns into a fight, we're screwed. Zephyr and Maxim look at each other, then at Will. It is Zephyr who speaks up. Well, I doubt you were worried, but we're in. I wasn't, since it wasn't optional. Okay then, step 1. We case the joint. Will zooms in further on the hologram. This map is as accurate as any that exists, I'm told. Technically, none actually exist. This was pieced together from various visits. He points to a lower portion. This is the docking station. The ship can handle 4 ships at once, but according to Zarix, the protocol is only to allow 1 ship at a time to dock. Maxim points to something. Looks like only 1 lift connects the 2 sections. That's a dangerous choke point. Will nods. Agreed. Hopefully, if needed, Benny can hijack the lift controls. At this point, Benny nods. The view comes up to the reception and vault area. It's a large circle, 2 levels tall. In the center is what looks like a control console marked as security. The lower level has 11 vault doors. The second tier has 12, equally spaced around the perimeter. The 2 levels are connected by a staircase. The team spends the next 3 talks looking over the plans, talking through ideas. Then a beep comes from Wil's wristcom. We're getting close. Let's go see our prey. He stands and heads towards the bridge, and the others follow. Casing the joint. The Barsoom system isn't a very well-known one. It doesn't contain any habitable planets, and there is only one gas giant, so it's not worth fielding a mining effort. In other words, it's exactly the place you want to hide a secret storehouse of criminal loot. So, it's precisely the place a secret storehouse of criminal loot exists. The station, for obvious reasons, isn't listed on any of the navigational charts, and its reactors are shielded so that a passing ship, should one ever venture into the Barsoom system, wouldn't even notice the station. As if that wasn't enough, it's painted black, because why not? Are you sure we're in the right place? Zephyr asks, from her position on the bridge, where she is serving as unofficial first officer. Her station is configured to manage ship systems as well as the sensors and communications. It's there. We're still stealthed, right? I don't want them seeing us lurking around the outer edge of the system. Will looks over at Benny, whose station has been heavily modified in the last 2 days. The small Braylac is hardly visible behind all the equipment. Yep, we're fully stealthed and running passive right now, Benny answers. I'm looking for signals, but their game is good. Not a thing out here but background radiation. Will adjusts the ship's heading and gooses the sublight drive a little to get them heading along a tangent to the station, or at least the supposed location of the station. The Ghost has 2 modes of propulsion. The sublight drive, which works in space, but not in atmosphere, can drive the ship nearly to the speed of light. Just off the center of the body of the ship, on either side of the sublight engines, the atmospheric engines are immensely powerful and can provide enough of a push to propel the ship. The design of the Ghost doesn't provide for atmospheric lift, so the forward section of each FTL engine boom has a repulsor field generator, which provides the lift to keep the ship in the air. As long as the stealth systems stay active, we can skip a cold coast, but keep an eye on it. Benny nods in response. To Zephyr, Will adds, keep an eye on the passives. This gets a lot harder if they've seen us before we arrive. She nods too. It might not have been a cold coast, but it still takes 4 hours before they see anything to make them suspect they're in the right place. In theory, they should be 1 billion or so kilometers from the station, with it down well and themselves up well. Not that it matters this far out in the system. Somewhere around the orbit of the 5th and second to last planet in the system. At this distance from the system's sun, it's easy to hold a position with minimal effort. Got something, Zephyr announces, looking up from her station to check the main display, which she's sending data to. The screens shift from the default view, just stars as far as Will can see, to what she is looking at on her own screens. It looks like infrared, and the whole screen is almost entirely black. But in the dead center, there's a slight red-orange-black color, no bigger than Will's fist. We're still pretty far, so can't get much without going active. But this is from our infrared sensors. That's got to be the station. They shield the reactors so you can't pick up the radiation and energy, but it's hard to dissipate heat completely. Though, I admit they seem to have gotten a pretty good system going. Will squints at the screen. Well, yeah, that's pretty impressive heat management. Okay, that's gotta be our target. Benny, anything yet as far as signals? We're close enough to see the reactor heat. Surely there's something. Benny looks up from his console and shakes his head. Nothing. Not a stray wristcom ping or unsecured transceiver. That place is a black box. Okay, that's not good. Might have to adjust our plan. Maxim has been silent for hours, So silent that Will jumps when the Big X Peacekeeper now speaks. Why does the plan change? Maxim is sitting at the weapons station, which, in the ship's current state, is purely for show. All weapons are completely powered down, including targeting scanners. Might have to get you a bell to wear, Will says. If they're keeping that tight a lid on signals, I'm guessing they've got the whole place set up as a Faraday cage. The instant we're aboard, we won't be able to communicate with Benny here on the ship and vice versa. The whole plan revolves around him getting into their system and guiding us. Will leans forward in his chair, staring at the main view screen and the bruised color smudge on the center. I might have a solution, Maxim offers. The plan. Will looks at the big Plorian. Go for it, big man. What you thinking? Maxim looks over at Zephyr. Remember the mission to the Drolobian embassy? We had to have our hacker guide us through. Zephyr nods, understanding crossing her features. Yes, I think that could work. Let me look over the plan Zarex provided Will. Will looks at one, then the other. Mind sharing? Zephyr gestures to Maxim to continue. The ex-peacekeeper shifts in his chair. Our squad was sent to infiltrate the Drolobian embassy on Rostham 4. We didn't know the layout of the structure since they imported an all-Drolobian workforce to build it, and the only known plans were in the secure server on the inside. The peacekeepers wanted to bug the facility and get a complete blueprint, so we needed to infiltrate the building, access the server, and copy the files. Our squad hacker faced the same problem we do. The embassy was immensely secure, so the on-site security forces would detect any comms instantly. That meant she had to be on-site too. So? Will asks. So we engineered a minor disaster in the building, something to do with the plumbing. That way the embassy had to allow our hover van onto the property. From there, we were able to park close enough to a data access junction and splice a hardwired connection. Will roll waves his hand in what he assumes is a universal gesture for keep going. So since we're going to have to dock with the station anyway, unless there's a shuttle bay on this thing I haven't found, Will shakes his head. Perfect. And when we're docked, it shouldn't be that hard to find a data access junction somewhere near the docking section. Benny can access the station that way. On top of that, then he can likely hide our comms inside the system, so there are no extra signals to raise suspicion. Will looks over at Benny. Will that work? The little hacker grins evilly, an immensely disturbing sight. Yeah, that'd be just fine. I can do a lot more with a hardline connection, as long as there's a junction. Yes, here we go. Zephyr updates the primary display with the plans Zarex has provided. If this is accurate, the central docking section has 4 docking arms. Since we assume we'll be the only ship there, the entire section will be empty save us. We're lucky Zarex was thorough. These plans are quite detailed. The image zooms in. Here you can see a primary data access junction. I'm sure it's locked, but that shouldn't be an issue. From there, we can set Benny up just inside the docking arm. What about cameras? Surely the central docking section isn't that insecure. Will uses his station to zoom the image back out and pan it around, looking for the symbols that would indicate a camera or sensor cluster. You're not thinking like a criminal, Will, Zephyr says. This station is super secure, super anonymous. There are guards in the reception area, which, other than the docking section, is the only public space. The guard's silence can be, and likely is, bought. Digital evidence of customers coming and going would be bad for business. If just one customer hacks the station, they'll know who all the clients are, when they come and go, and what types of crates they're moving. I wonder how Zarex accomplished this. Good point. And you probably don't want to know. Okay. I think we've got a workable plan here, lady and gentlemen. Benny, you're a male, right? The already surly Braylac turns a deeper shade of green. The hell do you mean, am I a male? What the hell did you think I was? Will raises both hands, palms out. Okay, just trying to be sensitive and not make assumptions. He ducks just in time to keep from getting a pad to the face. The break-in. The voice comes clearly over the bridge loudspeakers. Unidentified craft. You have 30 fractions of a talk to transmit your identity and access documents. Friendly, mutters Maxim. Benny, you have the doctored ID ready to go? Will asks from the pilot seat in the center of the bridge. Benny looks over at Will and gives a thumbs up. At least, Will assumes that what it was supposed to be. It's harder to tell on a three-fingered hand. Will searches for the communications controls on his own station. Station? This is the Transport Serenity. Transmitting ID and access documents now. Will looks at his new and untested, at least as a unit, crew. Here we go. It takes the station about 5 minutes to go over the transmitted documents. All the while the ghost is getting closer and closer. They're still targeting us, Maxim warns from the weapons station. Should we target them back? No, we're transmitting doctored-up ID docs as well as a doctored sensor image. Unless someone looks out the window, we're just a mid-sized transport. If we start painting them with all kinds of targeting scans, they might look closer. Besides, I have to assume any transport trusted enough to come out here would know how it works, and wouldn't worry about it, I hope. Reassuring, Maxim grumbles. The speakers crackle slightly. Serenity, everything checks out. You're clear to dock at docking collar 3. They're no longer painting us, Maxim reports with visible relief. Will begins guiding the ship to its assigned docking collar. Okay, you two. Go get ready. He nods at Maxim and Zephyr. Benny, you too. As the ex-peacekeeper exits the bridge, Benny turns to Will. You know, this would be easier if we'd done my shopping list, just saying. Will doesn't take his eyes off his displays. I haven't decided if you get to stay on my ship, and I'm not wasting a single credit on your green ass until then. Benny scowls at the back of Will's head and leaves the bridge. 10 minutes later, Will walks the short distance from the bridge to the portside airlock, located on the forward section of the ship, just behind the bridge. The main receiving area between both airlocks has been modified to be a more military-grade staging area. A few racks of weapons and body armor line the front and back walls, with short walkways to each side leading to the airlocks. Walking in, Will finds 2 peacekeepers in full peacekeeper combat armor. What the? We're sneaking aboard the station, not storming Normandy, the larger armor-clad form asks. What's Normandy? Then the visor snaps up, revealing a slightly grinning Maxim. Will shakes his head. Where did you get all that? I know the budget I gave you wouldn't include weapons and 2 full sets of peacekeeper armor. The smaller armored form turns to Will, and the faceplate snaps up, revealing Zephyr. We got creative with the budget. Also, the weapons dealer hadn't found a buyer in 3 cycles, so was a bit desperate to get rid of these. They're not current gen, but they're good enough. Also, if you want to sneak, this is what you want. She taps a few controls on her gauntlet and fades from view as the faceplate drops back over her head, sealing her into her armor. Prismatic adaptive camouflage. At best, Will can just make out a faint wavering outline. Okay, 1. Kudos on the creative budgeting. 2. Zephyr, stay in yours. Max, sorry, but I need you to be visible muscle. Remember, our cover is we're here making a drop for Zarix. We're gonna have a cargo crate to lug around, and we need to look like low-life cargo runners. Maxim. My name is Maxim. The big Plorian grumbles as he begins disassembling his armor. Zephyr returns to visibility and moves to help him. Will puts his hand on the big man's shoulders. Next time, I promise you get to wear armor. Deal? Maxim nods. Will turns to the section of the room where he keeps his own gear and grabs his utility belt and an extra sidearm. He also takes a gauntlet designed to go over his wrist comm, not only protecting it, but adding to its abilities. Where's Benny? Will tilts his head up to the ceiling. Computer, where's Benny? I'm right here, Benny says, coming from the direction of the main corridor. I had to gear up. He's loaded down with, well, Will has no idea what, but every pocket and pouch on the jumpsuit the little guy likes to wear is packed with stuff. Also, he's buried under a large backpack. What is all that? You're going to be 5 meters from the ship at most. Not stranded on a deserted island. Will shakes his head, but decides it's not worth arguing about. Okay, everyone ready? Remember the plan? Nodding all around. Okay then, let's go rob somebody. The past. Will has no idea what's going on. His head is swimming, he's got about 1,000,000 questions, and he doesn't know what's happening around him with so many aliens moving. He's following along behind Lanksham and his 2 guards? They still haven't spoken, but they haven't left the captain's side either. Will is between them as they walk together down a corridor of some type. Ahead, a hatch opens, sliding apart. They walk into what Will guesses is the bridge. There's a central seat and stations all around it. Some of them are occupied, some aren't. The 2 guards take positions at 2 of the stations. Guess they're more than just muscle, Will thinks. Lanksham sits in the center in what looks like a cross between Captain Kirk's chair and the cockpit of Will's pod, sans the pod itself. The captain must also fly the ship. Pressing a button on his console, Lanksham says, "Gartrath, is the hold secured?" A yes comes back over the bridge speakers, and Lanksham pushes some buttons and takes the controls. Will can see the stars moving in the display at the front of the room. A second later, the stars vanish and a swirling effect replaces them. Lanksham gets up from his station and heads for the hatch they recently entered through. "Come with me," he says, pushing past Will and making a gesture to his 2 crewmen. Crew beings? That he doesn't need them this time. They walk back down the same corridor, which must be the only way to the bridge, Will guesses. A turn, and then they're in a largish space, not the cargo hold. Will has no idea how big the ship is or its layout. He had thought they were going back to the cargo hold and his pod, but somehow they had ended up in the lounge area. Sitting in a large overstuffed chair, Lanksham points to a smaller chair opposite him. "Most would have left you in your pod to die, or brought you aboard and then spaced you and kept your pod." Thanks? "You're human, yeah? This system is where your home planet is." "Yeah, Earth. 3rd planet from the sun, our star." "Yeah. So I'm breaking a ton of rules, but figure that's better than letting you die. Fact is, this system, especially the inner orbits, are off limits. No ifs, ands, or buts. Get caught here, and the peacekeepers take your ship, toss you in one of their holes, and that's that." Lanksham strokes his beard. It looks like hair, but who knows? "Since we were here, and I'm not a complete block of ice, we grabbed you on our way out. That's the good news. You get to live. The bad news is, you'll probably never go home." Will opens his mouth to protest, asks questions, possibly scream incoherently. Lanksham raises a 6-fingered hand to stop him. "It sucks, I know. I can't take you home, and no one else ever will either. The punishment is just too severe, especially going that far in system. Maybe one day you'll have a ship, but what then? You go home on your own? I don't know much about your people. But if they're anything like 98% of the other races in this sector, your government will have no end of questions. They'll likely dissect you, and then just as likely either use the ship you come in or reverse engineer it. In either of those cases, the moment your people start venturing out of your system, the GC ban is lifted. That means your people are as likely to find pirates and slavers as peaceful, well-meaning folks. Best not accelerate the process until your people are ready." Lanksham stands up and walks over to some refrigerator-looking thing and grabs 2 bottles. Sitting back down, he leans forward and hands one to Will. "Life sucks, and yours is about to get worse before it gets better." He takes a long pull on his drink. Will sniffs the top of the bottle and follows suit. "Tastes like beer," he decides. "Until I get tired of you or find someone to pawn you off on, you're part of my crew. The Reaper isn't a big ship, but we get by. Oh, and in case you haven't put it together, this, waving to encompass the entire ship, is the Reaper. She's an Uncaran Raptor, which I know means nothing to you, but believe me, that's impressive. We do what we can to stay flying, smuggling, a little piracy, but never slaving. That Drin is despicable. We haul cargo sometimes when it pays enough. Sometimes we do mercenary work. Like I said, whatever keeps us flying. Everyone puts their weight, everyone shares the risks, everyone gets a cut of the action. Taking another drink of the beer-like beverage, he asks, "Any questions?" Will sits there for a beat, holding his beer-like drink, staring at Langsham, and then he screams. When he stops, Langsham smiles. "Feel better?" "Not really, but if I didn't let that out, I might have exploded. I don't even know what to say or what to ask. It sounds like I don't have much say in the matter, so, I don't know what else to say." Langsham nods. "You're handling this better than I expected, I won't lie. Maybe because you're one of your planet's explorers, this is all easier to grasp. I don't know, but I'm glad you're not a blubbering mess. This type of thing isn't exactly routine. But it's happened enough, there are stories." "Sad. Mine will be boring, come to think of it." Will rubs at his face, thinking, "Okay, my first question is, how are you speaking English, or am I speaking your language? Do you have a universal translator?" "That's a weird name, but quite accurate. You're speaking whatever you speak. I'm speaking my language. The computer is translating. That's why it's a little laggy. The rest of us have translator microbes." Langsham gestures vaguely towards his head. "You'll get some soon, and it'll be easier." "That's good. This has been a surreal and terrifying kung fu movie so far." Will sets his bottle down. "Am I a slave?" "Weren't you listening? I don't do that. It's despicable. No, you're not a slave, you're crew, low-ranking for sure, like a cabin boy. You have to earn your place, but you're crew." Will thinks about it a second. "Well, that's good, I guess." Over the speakers, a voice. "Captain, we're almost to Groupta, ETA .5 tox." Langsham looks to the ceiling. "I'll be there shortly." Turning his attention to Will, he says, "We'll continue this later, but for now we have business to attend to. Come with me. You can stay on the bridge and watch, but don't touch anything."